Welcome to video 3 of 3. In this video we'll be looking at how to share your finished video with the world, along with learning some general tips to make your videos more effective and engaging. You'll be starting with page 11 of your handout. So now we have finished our video and we're looking to export out our video so that we can upload it to either our website or social media. So let's jump back into Adobe Premiere Rush. Whenever you are editing a project, it is good practice to be saving your project in case it crashes. However, Adobe Premiere Rush is pretty good. It syncs directly to the cloud if you've got it set up correctly. So you don't need to worry too much about that, nor do you have to worry about something called rendering, which is what happens in advanced software, particularly where you've got a lot of detailed titles and special effects. Before you export out your project, you'll need to save it and render it. So that's kind of the final step before you export. But in Rush, it's all pretty simple. We just need to get our video how we like it. And then what we do is we head on up to the share button. We click on this and now it gives us a new dashboard where we can create files. So I always create a file that is for my computer, regardless if it's for social media or whatever. I make a local file, and I usually have a naming practice where I've got sort of the company name and what it is, if it's a draft or a final, and then if it's for website, you put website. If it's for Facebook, it's the Facebook version, just because you might end up with several different exports and you want to be able to find the one you need, because they might export out at different settings. So this is for a website. If we look at the advanced settings, that's odd, but anyway, we'll just leave that. You can see that it's automatically suggested 1080p, which is great because that's what the footage was shot at. So it's giving me the highest resolution. It's saying 25 for the frame rate. Once again, it's just pulling from what the footage was shot at. If you're in America, that will likely be different. It may say 30 for instance, but it's automatically pulling the details from your footage, so you shouldn't really have to play with this too much. The only thing you might want to change is the quality. If you are wanting a really small file to email through to someone, sort of in the checking phase where you needed feedback, you might choose to go a low export, just so it's more likely to fit into an email. But the rest of the time you're probably going to keep it with this automatic high. So once you're happy with all of this, you've got to make sure you've actually chosen where you are saving it to. So I'm going to save it back into where my footage is. It's actually good practice to have another folder that's called exports, but for the purpose of this tutorial I'm just going to save it here. So we've got a name, we've got a destination. It's automatically pulling up the best settings for this export, and then I click export down here, and then we have this exporting screen showing. So that usually takes a few minutes. It's a great time to go grab a cup of tea or check some emails. Now when you've finished this one, you'll probably want to go back in and create some more. So let's go back to share. Now if we look at Facebook, you can see with Facebook you actually have the option to sign in with Facebook and then upload directly to it, which is really great. It's a great option. I prefer to save versions to my computer and then manually upload them to Facebook, just because I have a couple of different companies that I do it for, so I just like to play it safe and choose which company I'm uploading it to. Again, you've put your destination in here, and then automatically the settings are coming up again. Then I would export out again. So once you've finished exporting that onto your computer, you can go through and create versions for YouTube and Instagram, and then you'll have multiple versions to upload. So now you've got these video files that are set for the correct settings for those platforms. You might think you're ready to just upload and share, but it's also good to prepare a couple of other things in advance, and one of those things is copy. So when you post a video on Facebook, for instance, you can write an intro to the video, bearing in mind usually the first two sentences will definitely show, especially in mobile. If someone's looking on desktop, they're probably likely to see a little bit more, but really make those first two sentences count. And you might want to add some emojis in as well to help catch people's eye. So here I actually have what it looks like on Facebook when you upload. So you'll go to the add photo video option and this comes up, and they'll ask you for a video title, which actually doesn't show to the public, but in the back end when you look through your videos you'll be able to search through the titles. What people will see here is this copy that we've just talked about. So this is where you put a couple of sentences in, add your emojis, add your hashtags if you want to. That's the area it goes to. You can also add some keywords or tags if you'd like. This is where the file you've uploaded will show. And now a really important thing is the thumbnail. So what the thumbnail is like when people are going through their social media feeds, they don't automatically see the video playing. So their first impression of your video is the thumbnail, and it is just one moment of your video. So you should be really selective about what that moment is. If you think about when you're scrolling through the menu on YouTube or on Netflix, you decide on what you're going to watch based on those thumbnails. The copy also plays a part, but generally it's the thumbnail that sort of you're scanning quickly through. So you want to give some time about thinking about what that thumbnail will be. Facebook is quite good and they give you a couple of options in choosing your thumbnail. So if you click on that tab, this will come up. What they do is they auto-generate 10 images to choose from, so you can select one of those. Often those are a little bit blurry. It's actually quite hard to grab a moment from a video where there's not a bit of motion blur on it. But sometimes you might be in luck and the one you were thinking in your head anyway will pop up, so you can just click on that. Otherwise you can upload a custom image. This is great if you want to take a still from your video and maybe bring it into Photoshop, add some captions. On YouTube the thumbnails are quite over the top with people doing funny faces and then big bold titles. So this is where you would make a thumbnail like that and add the image. You've also got a video frame option, which they also have in Vimeo, I know, where you get to play through your video and actually select a certain moment. So instead of 10 images to choose from, you've got 25 times the length of your video. So that's quite a good option. Now once you've got your copy, your thumbnail in there, your video's loaded, you want to think about the actual timing of when you post your video. It's just like any normal social media best practice. Probably avoid posting it at 9 AM on a Monday morning when everyone's super busy. Just because you've done all this work and you've plopped it in there, it might not necessarily be that you publish it straight away. You might schedule for it to go out later. Lastly, with Instagram, whenever you put a video on Instagram, you can't do it from your desktop. You need to get that video onto your phone, and then once it's in sort of your photo gallery on your phone, then you can do an upload onto Instagram. Now when it comes to the thumbnail for Instagram, it is called cover. So when you're sort of selecting through the options of sharing something on Instagram, look for the cover button, and that's where you'll be able to choose your Instagram video thumbnail. Great, so that's everything you need to know about exporting and uploading. Each platform sort of has different uploading needs, but you've got the basics covered with your video asset, your copy and your thumbnail knowledge, and your knowledge of timing. Okay, now let's practice with an activity, what you've learnt. I encourage you to export out the video you've created so far in Rush. Try make one for website, then try make one for Facebook, and then one for Instagram. See if the file size actually is any different, and then open up your Facebook and your Instagram and have a go at uploading and following the prompts. And then you're sorted to share your videos with the world. So now we understand the Adobe Premiere Rush desktop. Let's take a look at what the app version looks like. So this is really great to download onto your phone, especially if you've got a lot of videos on your phone. You can just use the app to create a video and export it out. Really great for little family videos and things like that. The interface has got most of the stuff that we're used to seeing, it's just sort of in a different position. So we've got the preview window, big playback buttons, we've got our timeline down here. Down here we've got where we can choose the media that we want to bring in. Here is our bin. These things all just sort of expand up. This is, expand your track so you can see them. Here's the big great thing about Rush with the orientation of changing it from landscape to portrait. And then over here, starting to see some of the adjustment options, and I believe it's sort of a scrolling bar, so you'll see some of the other ones we talked about, like color as well. So that's what the phone version looks like. Now let's look at some other software options. So here we have iMovie, which is free on Mac computers. It's a great little program, so it's got similar things to what we've been used to seeing. So we have our preview window, we have our bin/media assets here, we have our timeline up here, we have some adjustments up here. It doesn't have as many sort of easy access timeline editing things like Rush does, but you can do a lot of stuff with control right click. You can also add some extra things like transitions and titles up here. So it's a bit of a simplified version of Rush. Rush is definitely a more advanced version. You pay more for it, but you get extra. But iMovie is not a bad place to start if you have a Mac computer, you don't have much budget, and you want to get into video editing. Have a go with iMovie. I also have a training course for that. A free piece of software that comes with that is Movie Maker. Now this is the most simplified of all the versions. It does have a preview window and it does have a timeline. You get all your options up here and you sort of switch between different tabs. It's definitely more limited in adding music and titles, there's limited options. But again, if you've got a PC and you need to get a video together, you can do most of the basics with this program, and you can definitely share and save videos. So again, I have a training video on that one if you find yourself, if you're on a PC and you need to get some videos edited for free. Awesome, so now we've got our heads around Premiere Rush software, other pieces of software. Let's just take a moment to think about some best practices, and I want to share some tips that I've gained over the years. So we'll start with making social media videos. Keep your videos short, they're more likely to retain people's attention if they're short. Videos should make sense with or without audio, so sometimes people have audio turned off in their feed, so when they're scrolling through their feed, you really want your video to stand out and make sense with or without audio. So that might mean you need to make some titles to go in there to make it make sense, or just have interesting cuts that people are like, wow, what is this video? I want to watch it. So bear in mind that if you have someone talking to camera, they might not necessarily be heard if it's on social media. So you may also want to think about captions, which is something you can add when uploading to Facebook. We've talked about this quite a lot, but remember at the start of your editing process to think about where your final destination is. And square videos are for Instagram, but they can also work on Facebook, and they actually take up more room in the feed. So you don't have to do a landscape video for Facebook. You can actually put a square or a vertical video on there, but you need to make that decision at the start of your editing process so you can make the right decisions with your visuals. Again, be careful putting titles too close to the bottom of your video, because they might end up being covered by captions or some other little icons that social media sometimes adds to the bottom of your videos. And then I've just added this on. This is another app option. It's GoPro's Quick app. It has a couple of template video options where you get to choose between a couple of songs and a couple of looks. And it's really great for just cutting together really quickly some holiday videos, snaps, or some family videos. If that's what you're wanting to do, if you've got a whole lot of video from Christmas or something like that, you want to do a little video montage, then check out GoPro's Quick app. I quite like that one. Then, tips for filming for editing. When you start editing a lot, you will realize there are things that you can do when you're filming to save your time in the edit. One of those things is make sure you're happy with your camera settings at the time of filming, because they will dictate what your editing settings will be. For instance, don't go and shoot at a resolution of 720 when you actually want a 1080p video, because then your editing, you'll have to either try and up-res your footage and it will look really bad. So check your settings on your camera when you're filming. That includes checking, what your phone records video at. A lot of those phones are for American settings, but if you're in New Zealand, you may want to make it 25 frames per second. And the reason you might want to do that is because if you're shooting indoors with New Zealand lights, sometimes you get this banding / flicker effect because the rate that the camera is filming at clashes with our electricity system. It's the same electricity system that Australia has and the UK has. America is completely different, and that's why 30 frames per second is a good fit over there. But 25 frames per second, if you're filming with New Zealand lighting, is a good way to go. I've also included shoot different angles of a scene to give you more editing options. So for instance, if you are filming an interview with someone where they're talking to camera, you might shoot it directly front on, ask a set of questions, and then you might move the camera slightly to the side to get more of a profile shot, and then re-ask those questions again. And then when you're editing, you'll have two versions of the answers to choose from, and that will give your video a bit of variety. So you'll also want to think about storytelling as you shoot. So that means thinking about, if I shoot this, how will that maybe transition into another shot? Also, you'll probably have done some planning, so you might have a script that you're shooting to where you would have done a lot of that thinking, but if you can basically cover all your bases and get all the shots you need while you're filming, it will save you a lot of headaches in the storytelling process on the timeline. And that kind of leads into my next point, where I say think of how your shots might cut together as you shoot. Got a good example of this when I recently filmed a real estate video. It was a house with lots of big rooms. So initially the thought was get the panning shots left to right so you get to see the whole room. However, if I just shot every room exactly like that, when I cut those shots together, the entire video would be going left to right, left to right, left to right. So boring, and actually a little bit sickening. So I had to make sure I got different shots, so get a tilt shot, or maybe just an actual still shot, or one with a slight zoom, just for each room, so you've got a little bit of variety to choose from. Just like if you were filming a skateboarding video, you might shoot wide, and then you might have a different option of a close-up on the skateboard or the trick. It just lets you have a bit of options and variety. Yeah, makes it interesting. And I guess to summarize all of that, it is just more shots to work with is better than less when it comes to editing. So now some tips for editing. Remember the power of music and cut to the beat if you can. This will give it a really polished look. Use free music or purchase licensed music. Avoid popular radio music, which could have a copyright infringement, and on places like YouTube may even be taken down for that very reason. If you are purchasing music, you might get the option to pick between a WAV file or an MP3. I recommend you go for the WAV file just because it's less compressed. I've mentioned this quite a few times now, but think about your orientation at the start of your edit. If you're creating a video for your website, you will need to host that video somewhere. So if you talk to someone that creates websites, they will encourage you not to have a massive video file that takes a long time to upload that's directly in your website. So if you host it on somewhere like Vimeo or YouTube, it's going to load faster and it's not going to drag the speed of your website and make it unpleasant user experience. So if it's going on the website, you might need to choose if you're going to put it on YouTube, which is free. However, you might have some other ads running on it, or you might want to put it on Vimeo. You do have to pay a fee for that, but that's what I use for my business, and it's a little bit more controlled. Good practice is to back up your footage, and if you have multiple sequences, those as well, to a second location, because as you edit, you'll know all the hard work that you put into it, and it's horrible if you lose all of that. For inspiration, I encourage you to watch and save a lot of videos. Facebook and Instagram, there are options to save things. You've got Pinterest as well. When you watch videos, just think about why is that video working, why is it interesting, and just sort of apply those techniques to your own videos to help improve. I mentioned before, don't add too many transitions or over the top effects when you start out. Likewise, don't add in too many zooms. It will just be too much. Simpler is often better, so just concentrate on telling a good story. And this is sort of an advanced option, but as you improve, you may want to start working with new sequences so that when you have major revisions, you have a new sequence, so you can always refer back to an old sequence if you need to. So now a couple of handy websites that you can use with your editing. With Adobe's products, they have some good tutorials, so if there's something you want more information on, go and check out their tutorials for Rush. Audio Jungle is a website that I use to get licensed music tracks. I've been using it for years, so I really like it, so I encourage you to have a look and see if you like any of the music on there. You will have to pay a small fee for the artist, but sometimes you get better options than some of the free soundtracks that you are provided in some of the software. Video Hive, this is great for when you're doing advanced editing and you start to go looking for additional titles or special effects, things like the light flares and things like that. Video Hive, you can search for your software and for what you're looking for. It won't have many options for beginner software, but when you start to work with After Effects and Premiere Pro, you'll be able to buy additional assets there for them. Voice Bunny is a website I've used for voiceover artists and voiceover tracks. So I'm in New Zealand. It has a few options for New Zealand artists, but it's been really helpful when I've been working on projects for the US and in the UK. You can choose male and female, and what you do is you have your voiceover script, you sort of upload it, you choose your artist, and they go away, they record it, and then you review their work and you have the opportunity to give them feedback and they can make tweaks. They then resend you the file. You end up with a signed off track that then you import into your project and you work to that. It really does give your project a polished feel, and also great for animation videos where the voiceover is a main part of the video. Then lastly, I've just got a couple of stock image sites. These are not only helpful for video, really helpful for website assets. They are free images, but they do encourage you to credit the photographer where you can. So for instance, if I've used them on my blogs, on my website, I'll do a little photo credit at the end of the blog. But sometimes you might want to use one of those still images in your video, so go have a look at those as well. So that wraps up our course on video editing for beginners with Adobe Premiere Rush. You've just taken in a lot of information, so please practice the skills you've learned to help it commit to your memory. So the question is, how are you going to use what you learnt today? What cool videos are you going to be able to make now? I want to thank you for taking the time to learn and for choosing this course. If you have any feedback or testimonials, I would love to hear them. If you can send me an email at kylie@storyorchard.co.nz. They will be much appreciated and will help me very much, so thank you in advance for sending any of those. Now all that's left to say is to have an awesome time editing, enjoy using all the new skills and tricks that you have, and go out there and make some great videos.